coming. We really appreciate it. Tina and I and the rest of the Granny Brigade really like the crowd we have tonight. So thank you all for coming. Before we get started, we will say the flag salute, and then Pastor Farber will lead us in prayer.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. God, we sure do love you, and Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to come out tonight and get some information from these who have given of their time, given of their life to serve us here in Kansas. I'm so grateful for their sacrifice. God, I'd be remiss to not say thank you for the rain we received today as well. Bless this meeting. May we honor you with everything that takes place. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, I will introduce our moderator, Chad Farber, and our timekeepers is Carol Reed and Carolee Jingle. And before we actually get started, we are going to pass a basket around for donations to help us pay for the building. The Granny Brigade has no funds, and so whenever we put on an activity like this, we usually take up a collection. Thank you. And the way the itinerary will go tonight is the candidates will introduce themselves. Chad will ask a few questions. You all got index cards, I'm hoping. As the evening goes on, you write your questions that you want to ask the candidates, and we will collect them in a basket, and then Chad will read them to them, and you can address them to all of them or just one of them. And hopefully we get through everybody's cards tonight. We always try to get through everybody's cards. And if by chance you don't get your card filled out right away, just raise your hand and we will send the basket back around, and you can throw another card in the basket. If you want more than one card, just hold up your hand and the girls will get you one. And before I turn it over to Chad, so I don't forget at the end of the night, next month on October the 15th, the Granny Brigade will be hosting a town hall meeting with Senator Roger Marshall, and it will be at the Knights of Columbus Hall, and there will be food provided by American for Prosperity, so we want reservations. If you can please get them to us by October the 11th. And if you forget, I put a sign up here on the wall. You can take a picture of it and just come and listen to Roger Marshall next month. Thank you.
All right, I don't know. Do I need a microphone?
Yes. For the camera.
For the camera. Oh, for the camera.
I can hear you.
There's a seat right here in the front. I saved one in the front for you. This is like church. I'm supposed to recognize Dean. What is it, production? Mean Dean Productions, and I appreciate them doing the streaming for us tonight, and the filming always does a great job for those of you who have been able to watch the process back. But this is kind of like church. I meant to say it was like the back filled up first, and it kind of got up to the front. I call those VIP seats up there in the front. You get to actually hear those candidates. I am so grateful to have all of the candidates that were able to come tonight. We're very grateful for that. First of all, we have Paul Buskirk, who is running for the 1st District for the House of Representatives. If you could give him a hand. Next to him, we have Miss Lori Blake. She is running for the House of Representatives in the 69th District. Next to her, we have Miss Kathleen Malone Crouch, and she is doing a write-in campaign for the County Commission District 2 this year. In the middle there is Mr. Clark Sanders, and he is the incumbent running for re-election of the 69th District for the Kansas House of Representatives tonight. And then way down there on the end is Miss Annie Grievous, and she is also running for County Commissioner District 2, and give her a round of applause as well. I know we all have our favorites, we all have those that we enjoy, but tonight is to hear from the candidates. So I'm going to try to keep my responses and remarks as few as possible, and I would love for everybody who can to fill out one of those cards. We want to hear questions from the community and hear the responses from the candidates. So if you did not get a card, raise your hand and we'll get one of those index cards to you. Fill out those questions, and I think there's a basket going around that you can put those in, and we'll get those questions asked to the candidates for tonight. A little bit of housekeeping. We're going to have a 2-minute opening statement for each of you so that you can,
The email said 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Let me see. We're going to take a quick vote. All right, we'll do 3 minutes. That was a terrible vote. And if you keep your hand down, no, I'm just kidding. 3-minute opening statement. We'll do a 3-minute opening statement, and then we will have questions that are asked of the community, and we'll start that off. During the time of opening statement is a good time to write those questions down so you can get those in. And we'll have 1-minute responses to the questions that are asked so that we will be able to go through as many questions as possible from the community tonight. And then I will give you a chance at the end for a closing statement as well, so just in case there's something that you did not get covered in the questions. We have a timekeeper here, Miss Carol. She has a 30-second warning, and she has a 1-minute warning, and that's your responsibility to look over here and see how much time you have left, and you will hear a buzzer go off when you run out of time, and that'll be nice and loud for everybody to hear. We do ask that you use the microphone as you are speaking so everybody can hear you. In a group this size, I would say it's probably best to stand up for your responses. If you are more comfortable sitting down, please do so, and I told Mr. Busker, we'll make fun of you later if you're sitting down enough, but we won't do that. We won't do that. Any questions of the candidates? Does that make sense? Everybody makes sense? 3 minutes, okay? All right. Let's start right here on the left with Mr. Paul Buskirk, and you have 3 minutes for opening statements.
Good? Muted?
No.
You're good.
We're good. First of all, thank you to the Granny Brigade for hosting this tonight and creating an opportunity for us to become better informed in this election, which is now, who's counting, 49 days from today. My name is Paul Buskirk. As indicated, I'm running for U.S. Congress representing our 1st district in Kansas, which very much includes Saline County. Who am I? I grew up in small town Nebraska. My father was a preacher, mom was a teacher, my sister became a nurse, my brother became a doctor. And I'm an educator. For the last 40 years, I have helped high school students get to college. I've helped college students graduate and begin their careers. It's been incredibly fulfilling for me. Why am I running? I am completely dedicated, as many of you are, to the principle of serving others. Serving others. As I look at Washington today, I choose to believe that many of our elected and appointed officials, when they began their careers in Washington, also believed in service to others. I believe that. But then something seems to have changed. I observe, perhaps you observe, that now most of these same elected and appointed officials seem to spend more time fussing and bickering, pointing fingers, placing blame, and accepting no responsibility. Their sense of service seems to have been lost or misdirected. It is time for a wake-up call in Washington. It is time for government to be reminded as to why it exists. It is there to represent us. It is there to serve us and to be able to help our communities meet our needs. It is time for a significant change.
Well, good evening. It is so nice to see so many friends and neighbors and community members here this evening. I am Lori Blake. I was born in this town, and I have lived here all but 4 years of my life. I've been out knocking doors. I've been working hard because I want to be the representative of the 69th district. What I've been hearing at the door is, wow, we've never had a politician on our doorstep before. And what I've said to them is, well, I'm not a politician. I want to be your representative, and I believe that that's the title on purpose, because we need people to listen to our community members, and we need people to carry that message up to Topeka and represent this place. Now, for over the last 10 years, I've been an unaffiliated registered voter. The reason for that is, in my 13 years of service on the Southeast Saline School Board, I saw things in Topeka happening on the Republican side and on the Democrat side that I was not very happy to associate myself with. And it was partisan politics, okay? We are Kansans. We all have very similar issues and needs. As a school board member, we were able to listen to those issues. We were able to listen to parents and teachers and community members that came to the table with those concerns, and we were able to solve problems without thinking about parties on either side of the aisle, okay? I believe that's what we need to return to in the House of Representatives in our state, okay? So that is one of the reasons I've run. The last 25 years, I have served this community in human services and social services. I've been in family homes, in my work as a case manager for Choices Network, which is a disability supports organization that's funded by Medicaid. So I understand about Medicaid funded services and the need for the disability supports in our community. Families are struggling to provide for their loved ones. And in that situation, for 4 years, I got to do that work. The next 7 years in that work, then I was an HR professional, and I worked to listen to the needs of our employees who weren't earning enough money to pay for health care. They were not in a situation where that was provided for them, and I had to figure out ways to help them access those supports. The last 9 years, I was at Child Advocacy and Parenting Services, and again, was lifting the voices of those uncommon needs, child abuse survivors and their families. And I got to work with 6 different organizations here in Salina to unify voices for the purpose of helping them recover from their worst stories. So you can hear a theme through my life, and that has been to bring people together and to elevate the uncommon story and to represent people, and that's what I hope to do for each one of you here this evening.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Malone Crouch, and I am a write-in candidate for Saline County Commission District 2. I believe that I am well qualified for the job because of my experience. I was an educator for 34 years. The last 10 of those years, I was coordinator of gifted education for a large school district with 17,000 students, and thought I retired when I moved here. But my daughter went to seminary, and I went back to work and went to work for Saline County, where I worked for 10 years, first as a child care surveyor in the health department. And when that job was cut because of law changes in Topeka, and daycare homes went from 450 in a 3-county area to 150, so there was no need for me in that job. Well, the county opted to retain me, and I went to work in emergency management, worked there solely for 5 years. And when Hannah Stambaugh became the deputy director of the county, she asked me to move over to planning and zoning and merged the job that I was in emergency management with planning and zoning and environmental health. So for 5 years solely with emergency management, and then 3.5 years with planning and zoning, emergency management, and environmental health. So I learned during that time how all of those departments work together. I saw needs that had been unmet for a long time. Under the current commission, I have seen a lot of positive changes, and when I heard that Bob Vidrickson was retiring, I decided to run because I think I'm the person that can help carry those changes through and continue with the infrastructure improvements that need to be done. So I stand here tonight asking you to vote for me. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Clark Sanders. I am seeking re-election as state representative to the 69th district. The entire district is in Saline County. In addition to about 40% of Salina, the district also includes all the parts of 10 townships in Saline County. The towns of Assaria, Gypsum, Smolin, Fallen, and Brookville are all in the 69th district. I'm sure many of you are familiar with me. I co-hosted a program called KSAL's Friendly Fire for 22 years, and my views on many topics are public and well known. I am a conservative Republican, and I check all the conservative boxes. I am pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-business, pro-agriculture, and pro-small government. I have both the voting record and endorsements to back up these claims. While we made some significant headway regarding the tax policy this past session, there is much that needs to be done, including doing what we can at the state level to lower property taxes. During my 4 previous sessions, the governor has vetoed 59 bills as well as numerous line item vetoes. Of those 59 vetoes, 24 have been overridden, which works out to be just over 40%. I have voted in favor of all 24 successful veto overrides, and also voted in favor for the ones that didn't succeed. For example, after 2 previous attempts, we were finally able to pass the Fairness in Women's Sports Bill during the 2023 session. As she had previously, the governor vetoed this bill. The reason it became law in Kansas was because I was one of 84 representatives who voted to override that veto, the exact number of votes needed to get the override. Unfortunately, we fell 2 votes short of overriding the governor's veto of SB 233, the Forbidding Abusive Child Transitions Act. I am sure that this bill will come up again in 2025, and I pledge to once again vote to override any veto issued by the governor. One of the main reasons I think that voters should consider this election, one of the main issues I think you should consider in this election is who will vote to override gubernatorial vetoes of good legislation. I have a 100% voting record to override the governor. My opponent, on the other hand, in April of 2021, accepted an appointment from Governor Kelly to serve on the Information Network of Kansas Board. There is no substitute for experience. As a new legislator back in 2021, it took me a good year to get totally up to speed. If you want somebody who can hit the ground running when the legislature gavels in on January 13th, 2025, vote for Clark Sanders. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Annie Rivas, and I'm running for Saline County District 2 County Commission. I also am the primary Republican candidate after running through the primary. And I want to say that this is the second forum I've participated in this building, and what a crowd, and how great it is to see all of you out here. It brings joy to me to know that people care about what's going on in their counties and cities and government. I have lived in this town. Salina has been home for me since 1987. Came from K-State and right away got a job with Community Corrections where I met my husband, believe it or not, probation officers. And it was quite a deal. We raised 2 great boys here in this town and really celebrate everything this community has done. I was director of Community Corrections for 29 years. And doing that, I developed budgets, I wrote grants, raised millions of dollars over the course of those 29 years to support our program, and it was a mid to large size county program. I've worked with every county program within our district in some sort of collaboration or directly with many of them. And I have the experience because I've worked directly with the commissioners on budgets, developing budgets, the outcome of projecting dollars and planning long-term to supplement and make sure that county taxpayer dollars are not always utilized in every situation. The grant dollars are available and that we should use those resources as often as possible. So I retired a couple years ago. I'm currently an assistant grant director at Kansas Wesleyan. So I get to write grants still, so it's keeping all that fresh work going for Kansas Wesleyan and the community. And I remain very active in all the community activities and boards and things that are going on. So again, I'm excited to see you all. I ask for your continued support as you supported me in the primary, and I ask for you to vote for Annie Grievous. Thank you.
There's a basket coming around right now. If you have cards filled out, you can put those in there. While we are collecting those, I'm going to ask a couple of questions to the candidates. And I'm going to start with Mr. Buzzkirk here. If we could get the microphone down to him. Give Annie a break. She was just talking down there. Mr. Buzzkirk, on your website, one of the categories there is on immigration. And I know that is a hot topic around our country and even here in Saline County right now. One of the things that you say on your website is that our borders, we need borders that can be monitored and properly managed. And in addition to that, you say we need a streamlined and sensible path for those individuals who have come across the border in the millions illegally to gain citizenship. Is it your plan to give citizenship to all of those who have crossed the border? And could you explain the idea of having a monitored and properly managed border in your opinion?
Thank you, Chad. Immigration is absolutely one of the hottest topics in our first district, bar none. Both parties have now adopted secure the border, and I will evolve into that thinking myself, because if we have a border, we need to secure it, whether we call it moderation or not. Illegal crossing, illegal entry is still illegal. The issue for immigration in this election is not about securing the border, however. It is about what happens should Donald Trump gain office, because he has portrayed and pledged that on his first day in office, he will mobilize the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Police, and he will identify, arrest, and deport every single undocumented resident in our country. Not only would that create tremendous hardship in families, it will devastate the communities and economies in our first district. It will help and will hurt the economy in Saline County with the major industries you have with Schwann and also with Kubota, which I also understand are affected by the possibility of undocumented residents. So the issue is deportation. It is not really to secure the border, but I do support that.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question is for the candidates for the 69th District, Ms. Blake and Representative Sanders as well. And I pulled this off of your website, Ms. Blake. I went through some of the legislative priorities that you have on there, and I appreciate the website. It's very easy to read and very easy to navigate. One of the issues that you were focusing on is to provide families with access to high-paying jobs and high-quality, affordable childcare and housing. This is a big topic here in Saline County, and so I would like to hear both of your responses as to how you would affect the child care issue from the state level.
Thank you. So I believe one of the biggest things that we need to do is provide tax credits for families, and we need to provide incentives for businesses to offer those supports. So I'm very proud at CAPS, where I just left 9 years of service, that we were able to offer our employees free childcare on site. And what that did for our families was retain them, so we didn't have transitions, but for those children to have quality care in the place where their parents were working meant so much to those families. It relieved a lot of stress, as well as boosted their income and created loyalty to the organization. So I would encourage businesses to do that, and there are models out there that show it's got to be a partnership between public and private dollars. We can't put it on the shoulders of parents, we can't put it all on the shoulders of employees, and we can't put it all on the shoulders of government. We have to work together.
Wherever you go in the state of Kansas, there are three big issues: workforce, affordable housing, affordable daycare. I am working right now with somebody who is about to have her daycare license revoked. And it's for what appears to me to be totally ridiculous reasons. The regulations at the state level for daycare are way too onerous. I have spoken with all of the parents of the children who are in her daycare. They all love her to death, and yet she's about to lose her license. That's a problem, because that means that one of us is going to have 12 very upset constituents. We need to get these regulations under control, and they need to be reasonable.
Thank you. Next question is for Ms. Kathleen Crouch, and this question has arisen recently. You were, as was mentioned by Ms. Grievous just moments ago, you were defeated in the primary and now are running a write-in campaign. Can you explain the thought process behind that, please?
I was defeated in the primary by 17 votes. And after thinking about it for a very short while, I decided that if I did not try to do this and give it my all, I would wonder for the rest of my life if I could have done it. So I'm trying. I do not give up. I believe in seeing something through from beginning to end, and this has not ended.
Thank you. Ms. Grievous, do you have a response to that? I guess I should in equal time.
Well, I'd sing a song, but I agree. I love microphones. I would tell you that I support Kathleen in doing that. She's made work a little bit busy for me, but I support her in not giving up. 17 votes is a very close, narrow margin. We know that we only had 16% in our district come out. Primaries do not do well, and the general election will clearly give a better picture of the voting. So I'm going to say not only has she chosen to do something that I would have considered, but also I've so enjoyed being out with the people and meeting people and delivering signs and participating in activities. And I've got to know so many more constituents in our community. And so I guess I should say thank you, Kathleen.
These next questions are directly from the voters tonight, and so don't get mad at me with these questions. You can look out there at the people who are out there. And if I could remind everybody, please turn your cell phones to mute or turn those off. That would be greatly appreciated as well. First question, and this will go all the way down the line. I think Annie has the microphone. We'll start there and we'll work back this way if that's okay. This question is kind of open-ended. It says, what is your opinion regarding biological males participating in women's sports?
You know, I'm not going to answer that directly. I'm running for a Saline County Commission position. And two of the things I would say is that will never come up in a Saline County Commission decision. But also, Saline County Commission, even though it is partisan, we make no partisan votes. It is completely unpartisan in all the way. And because that archaic legislative decision was made clear back in the 1800s, I say that, it's probably not quite that old, but it seems old. But because of that, there's some things that the county commissions do that don't impact those direct choices. So I'm not going to answer that direct decision. It does impact other legislators and other things going on, but I'm going to pass on that just because I think I have some personal views, but they don't impact the direct job that I'm going to do as a county commissioner.
As I mentioned in my opening statement, I was one of 84 people who voted to override the governor when for the third time she vetoed the Fairness in Women's Sports Act. Let me make it clear, biological males have no business in female sports, period, end of story. If you doubt that, anybody watch the Olympics this year? Anybody watch the Olympic boxing? That was an atrocity. You're going to kill women's sports. What women fought so hard for with Title IX to get women's sports if this trend continues. I am 100% opposed to biological males participating on the female teams.
And I'm going to use Annie's words from the first forum. I totally agree what she said. This has nothing to do with county government. I have told several people who have sent me messages, emails, that I would be glad to talk to you about my personal views in person, but not when we're here to discuss county government.
Well, in my experience as a locally elected school board member, I've learned a lot about state governance. And there is a high school athletic association that governs these rules. And it's not really a state legislative decision. So they have rules, they do testing. I don't think that our state legislature has any role in making more decisions about this issue, as do other competitive sports have their own governing bodies.
It's been a long day in the car. And that wind today did terrible things to my hair. The folly of government is this: just because government can does not mean the government should. Right? Sometimes government should stay out of the personal lives and families involved. The Olympics have dealt with this issue for years. DNA, hormone issues. The NCAA has been dealing with this for years. It's complicated. The Kansas State High School Activities Association, a governing body of the state, now is working with this, and it's complicated. But government at the state and federal level needs to mind its own business. Government can does not mean the government should.
Thank you all for that, and I will say a lot of these questions that I've received so far are directed at the two candidates for the 69th district. So the rest of you can take a deep breath for a moment, but there are questions for you as well. So Ms. Blake and Mr. Sanders, I'm going to address these questions to you two specifically at this point. This question says, if presented with a state legislation that would ban birth control, would you sign that legislation? And we'll begin with Ms. Blake in this case.
Thank you. If I were to be elected and represent you in Topeka, I would follow what our voters have already said, and that we believe that the government does not have a place in our medical decisions. And that's a personal decision between the individual and their medical provider. And I don't believe that a body of elected officials from across the state have any business making that decision for me. It's a very personal decision, and there are a lot of circumstances that need to be considered.
No, I would not vote to ban birth control. I wouldn't vote to ban condoms. I wouldn't vote to ban IUDs. I wouldn't vote to ban the pill. There are a lot of things that I wouldn't vote for. Now, if you're talking about abortion being birth control, yeah, I would vote against that. But what we typically think of when we think about what birth control is, no, I would not support that.
And Mr. Sanders, if you'll hold on to that microphone there, again, this question is for you two. It says, what plans do you have to promote increased oversight of the KDHE and pulling back any red tape to increase child care, and I'm assuming that means helping the child care situation in Kansas?
The legislature has been dealing with this issue a lot the last couple of years. The regulations are too numerous. There are 171 pages of regulation. A lot of it is just common sense stuff. As long as a daycare provider is not endangering the life or health of a child, let them do their thing. Part of the problem that we get into is that there are home health care providers, home daycare providers, and daycare centers. A center is built for child care. A house is built to be a home. And you've got to use some common sense.
Our legislature this past year actually did reduce some of those rules and regulations to lighten that up, to address the issue. Those laws and those rules exist to protect children. And so I will always err on the side of safety and oversight for children to make sure that we have safe adults that are caring for them and that the environments they're in are safe, so that children can thrive and that parents have access to what they need. I don't disagree that some of them are a little ridiculous. I got to see that firsthand in my years at CAPS. We worked with 143 different child care providers in that work. So I've been in those homes and I've seen the work that those women and men do every day, and it is hard work, and we need to support them and provide them with everything they need so that our children can thrive and be ready to enter kindergarten, ready to learn.
And let me build upon that question, and this again comes from one of the voters. What are some of the child care regulations that were mentioned earlier, Mr. Sanders, that you believe are unreasonable? And I'll ask that to Ms. Blake as well. Do you see some that are unreasonable or some changes that need to be made with the regulations?
You can't lay a child on a floor that doesn't have some sort of padding of at least a ½ inch. Now, how many of you have ever had a child that you've set a blanket out on the floor? That child is fine, especially if they're on carpet, but the regulation calls for a ½ inch. The woman that I've been working with to try to help navigate through her getting her license revoked, at one point she had taken her kids to the pool, and she had somebody watching the kids while she walked to get something out of her van. The report said she went 208 feet. And I questioned the woman who had accepted that report, and I said, unless there's some kind of technology that I'm not familiar with, 208 feet, that's a pretty exact number. How do you know that? And she says, oh, that's because we get a tape measure and measure it. Now, how silly is that?
Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
They do. At Trinity United Methodist Church today, they were going through and they have a roller tape measure, and that's how they walk off the square footage of the space that's being provided. I would say one of the biggest frustrations we found was the educational requirements that are associated with child care centers. And so I had a woman that worked for us at CAPS who had her master's degree in early education, and because she had not gone through these 18 safety modules and had her CDA, she had to go through training just to be listed as the backup to the child care center as a potential substitute director. So I think some of that is again, not common sense. We have to look at the body of the work for these professionals, and if they are safe, they've cleared the background checks, and parents are okay with the care that they're being provided for their children, then we need to make a path for that to happen.
Thank you. I'm going to open this question up to all 5 of the candidates who are up there, and since the microphone's here, we'll start with Mr. Buzzkirk again. And the question is very simple, and again, it's a 1-minute response, so good luck with that. Based on your knowledge of city-state government, what do you see as your top priorities if elected?
There's a lot of tenacity thinking that a federal candidate shouldn't meddle into state and city issues and vice versa. We're all Kansas in that regard, and I believe it is the obligation of your federal candidates, senators and Congress individuals, to be participating, at least share a voice when it comes to the operations of the state legislature. Maybe not so much the city elements for lack of knowledge in that regard, but we're all Kansas. We're all involved in our 105 counties, and to draw lines between and say that's not my issue is ignoring and abdicating our responsibility.
Well, I've said it already, but my biggest priority is to be a representative of this place and to be a voice of reason and a voice of unity, that we can work together, that it's not just about party lines. We have work to do. We have issues for Kansans that are important. And my lens, the work that I have probably the best education and the best perspective about is around our families and what they need and our public schools. And so in 2 years, our funding formula for public education is going to be reauthorized. And the work that I did for 13 years at Southeast of Saline and also on the Kansas Association of School Boards Board of Directors has provided me with a great amount of experience and knowledge about what that looks like across the entire state of Kansas. And I want to be at the table to help make those decisions.
I believe that there's a large issue in Saline County with health and safety in the work environment and the environment that the public goes into. Our health department is not healthy. It's full of mold, and it has been for years. The administration has been working to try to do something, but more needs to be done. That's just one example. I believe that the infrastructure has been improved to a certain extent. It needs more improvement. When I went to work in emergency management, our sheriff's office were driving vehicles that had 400 to 600,000 miles on them, and those vehicles go out on the road 750 plus miles in this county 24 hours a day. So those are extremely important. We need to improve those things without increasing taxes. That's my third point.
There are many important issues at or close to the top of the list is taxes. We did make some progress this year. We did pass a big tax bill, but one of the things that we didn't do was give much property tax relief. The state assesses 20 mills. We wanted to, as Republicans, wanted to get that reduced to 16, some even proposed 14 mills. The governor wouldn't go for it. We tried 18 mills. The governor vetoed that. You know what she accepted? 19.5, a half a mil. We need property tax relief in the state of Kansas. And while a lot of that is local, there are things we can do at the state level, and we need to do it.
I agree with Kathleen. One of the top priorities is to find suitable housing for the health department. It's not safe for the clients. It's certainly not safe for the staff that work there. And I'm appalled that they've remained there as long as they have, as the roof leaks and there is mold and lots of things like that. In addition to that, there's a lot of empty buildings that are both owned by the city and the county. If you pay attention, there's a master plan going on right now, and they've hired a consulting firm, and I got to participate with elected officials in looking at that and looking at other ways to repurpose those buildings. One is the old jail that's just sitting there, that something has to happen to that. So that's another thing. I got to tour the new jail the other day, and I've always said we need to work more with economic development in our hiring and retaining of staff. They're doing some of the best work they've done in the last 10 years retaining jail staff, and that is not an easy job to do. So I'm impressed with that also.
Thank you. If you'll hold on to that microphone there, I know this is an important topic, talking about taxes, so I'm going to build upon that question and give you a little more time to talk about that as well. This question does come from the voters, and I'm just going to read the direct quote. Federal, state, and local taxes are killing us. I thought for sure I'd get a hand clap right there. There we go. This question has to do with what can be done to get property taxes under control. And I know, as was mentioned, it's different on the local level than it is on the state level, and that's why I think it would be good to hear all of the candidates' response to that. So Ms. Grievous, if we could start with you again, what could be done to get property taxes under control?
You know, I know that's a discussion every year, and one of the things I'd say is that, thank goodness we're not back 10 years ago. I think it was outrageous 10 years ago, and some of the concerns. I think that property taxes go up based on things that I'm not the most confident on knowing about. And I think it's just listening to the constituents and listening to those and meeting with the professionals, Sean, that do those things. One of the things I can say is that the sales tax is maxed out in the county when the voters approved the jail. So we know those aren't gonna happen, those are higher, and the property tax is the only thing that Saline County approves. And I don't think that they've gone up excessively state or county-wide in the last several years.
A lot of property tax issues need to be handled at the local level, but the state needs to do what it can. The governor has no interest in significantly reducing property taxes in the state of Kansas. If she did, we would have lowered property taxes from 20 mills down to 16 is what the Republicans wanted to do. We certainly could have gotten 18, but the governor stood in the way, would only accept $500,000. We have got to fight her all the way to make her understand that the state is taking too much of your money.
As we work to reduce those property taxes from the state level, then making use of federal funds that are available at the county level and making use of grants. That's what we need to look toward.
Well, Representative Sanders is talking about the 20 mil levy that we use in the state of Kansas to equalize education across our state. So property valuations look different in every community across the state of Kansas. Whether you're in Healy, Kansas with 64 students, or you're in Wichita Public Schools with over 50,000 students, the properties that are in those communities look different. And so those 20 mills equalize funding. It goes to the state, and then it's distributed to those areas that do not have the same access to dollars in their home communities. So every child in our state has access to high quality education. So their reduction of 19.5 mils is going to impact your schools, which then goes back to our school boards who have to figure out how to provide the services in their communities in order for their budgets to work and to take care of the needs of all the students in their buildings. There was a lever that the legislature eliminated. The ad valorem tax relief fund this year was eliminated. It used to be a tool that they could have funded to reduce property taxes locally.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Blake.
I opened up with my comments about the lack of accountability in Congress for making decisions because we're so busy pointing at the other people and making blame. Taxation is not a fun issue, but it's one of the favorites of Congress to point at somebody else. It is a slightly under-known Supreme Court decision that was just ruled this last spring. It's nicknamed as the Chevron case. Supreme Court ruled that administrative arms of government cannot by themselves enact laws unless Congress itself specifically put their thumbprint on it and gave authority to do that. That puts the fingers right back at Congress in this next session. So taxation and everything around it now is on the shoulders and accountability of your elected officials, which is where it should be in the first place.
Thank you, Mr. Buskirk. If you'll hold on to the microphone, I believe we'll start with you and head back the other way. Another big topic here in Kansas, and I know this is going to be on the floor again this upcoming session, is expansion of Medicaid. And I know that affects local as well as state and even federal as well. The question here is simple. It says, do you support expansion of Medicaid? And if so, or if not, give your reason behind.
So we talked earlier about that whole federal versus states and not crossing the border. So it's not a federal issue, but it's a Kansas issue. So our first district is 60 counties wide, 42,000 square miles. I have traveled, not all of it just yet, but I've made a point of asking at least a few medical professionals, not just Joe, folks like me that don't understand everything, but medical professionals, do you support Medicaid expansion in the state of Kansas? 100% of every medical professional said yes, it is in the best interest of our residents and our patients in our state.
So this issue is one that's been around for the last 10 years. We are one of 10 states in the nation that have not expanded Medicaid. 90% of the Medicaid expansion would be funded by your tax dollars that you've already paid to the federal government. Those tax dollars currently are going to the coastal communities and the coastal states that have approved Medicaid expansion. When Medicaid is expanded, it also reduces my opportunity for healthcare and my expenses with healthcare. Because when people go to the emergency room and they don't have insurance to pay for it, guess who's paying for it? We're paying for it in premiums, we're paying for it in the cost of services. And so we should at least be able to have a debate And the leadership of our Kansas legislature has not even allowed the conversation to take place. So I'd be in favor of having the conversation to get a real vote on the floor of where people across the state of Kansas stand on this issue.
Again, this is not a county issue, and I would be glad to discuss my personal views. I'll be at Mocha's tomorrow morning at 8:30.
I am opposed to Medicare expansion. There's many reasons why. We don't know what it would cost us. I mean, the federal government might tell us one thing, but they might end up doing another. Here's what would happen if we expanded Medicare in the state of Kansas. We'd add approximately 140 to 150,000 able-bodied 19 to 60-year-old people would be on the rolls. That would push the people who really need the help from Medicare back further down the line. There are many other reasons to oppose Medicare expansion, and there was a hearing this past year in the Health Committee on the House side, I think on the Senate side as well. So the debate has begun. I would welcome the debate as well, but it's not like that it hasn't started.
Well, you know what I'm gonna say. This is not a local issue. I do have time to sing a song, I'm thinking. I mean, really. I have an opinion. I'm not gonna be at Mocha's tomorrow to talk about my opinion. I do think it needs to be reviewed. I am surprised that Kansas is one of a small portion of states that hasn't looked at it further. But as a Saline County Commissioner, I won't be at that debate or on the floor.
Thank you. And the reason I opened that to everybody, Mr. Buskirk, you're a Kansan, and I respect your opinion on that. I know our county commissioners will be in the position, much like our city commissioners, where they sent lobbyists to Kansas in favor or against Medicaid expansion. I was just seeing your opinion on the subject. Moving along, much of these questions are about child care, so we must have hit a nerve talking about that a little bit earlier. So again, if I could go back to our two candidates for the 69th district here. Child care, and I'll read it here, child care is a critical component supporting the Kansas economy, with many young families struggling even to make ends meet. How do you make child care affordable and equitably accessed in our communities? And we'll start with Mr. Sanders, since he has the microphone.
Okay. 1 minute? Government can't do everything. Let's just start with that as a premise. What government can do and should do is get out of the way. We have eliminated some of the regulations. We need to eliminate a whole lot more. We need to have people at the state level who are supportive of those people who are willing and able to provide child care. And unless there is some sort of egregious violation going on, support them. Don't hinder them with unnecessary regulations.
I concur. I also think that, again, the public partnerships that have taken place, Saline County is an example across our state of coming together. We have private investment from companies that have gone to a fund at the United Way in order to create an endowment and to eliminate the, to reduce the wage gap for child care providers. Did you know that in Saline County, the average wage of a child care provider in a child care center is $12 an hour? So this fund is helping us raise those wages to at least $15 an hour for an assistant teacher and $18 an hour for the lead teacher in those classrooms, to help with that living wage and help get that, number one, to provide the care so that the child care provider also can earn a living wage. But then to have more opportunities in our community for children and for their families so they can stay in the workforce. COVID was a perfect example of what happens when it's not available.
Thank you. And Ms. Blake, while you're standing, I'm sorry, you sat down already. While you were standing there, do you support total funding of our state education system? I know that's a very complicated question.
Total funding of our state education system. So we currently are meeting the statutorily funding through the formula. It's gone through the courts, and the funding formula that's there currently is working. I would say the only thing that's not working is our funding of special education. And currently there is a law on the books that says the state of Kansas has an obligation of funding 92% of the excess costs of special education. And the state currently is at 75%. They put $75 million into the budget this year with some of our surplus funds that we have, and that's a step in the right direction, but those aren't permanent funds. So we've got to have advocates in the State House who are willing to remember that when we take special education funds out of the general fund, that reduces the pot of money that we have to pay teachers. Because it's a federal law, we have to provide the sources, we have to provide the supports to children in special education. Like, that's not an option. Those general fund dollars that are generated from the state, those base state aid dollars, would be fully funded, and I would advocate that they continue.
I'm not sure what totally funding education means. Does that mean we wouldn't take any money from the feds? I don't know what that means. The state constitution calls for the state to provide for a suitable education. You can argue about what exactly suitable means, but I think we're doing that. Yes, we did put $75 million more towards special education this past session, but just as importantly is we put a mechanism in place that can only go up. That 75 million can not go down. It will continue to grow.
Mr. Sanders, while you're there, you mentioned earlier the bill that was vetoed by the governor on the transition, gender transition. Yes. And the question is, will this come up again this session? And where do you stand on that issue this session?
I will bet you $1 to a nickel that yes, it will come up again this session, and I will be supporting this bill. What the bill basically said was that you cannot do gender manipulation for children under the age of 18. You get to be 18, you're an adult, you can do whatever you want. But if you're 14, 13, 16, it should be illegal for doctors to remove body parts from those young people. That's basically what the bill said, and I support that bill. I supported it last year, I'll support it again this year.
When I'm in the House, I would not support that bill because, again, I don't believe the government has any decision in making my medical decisions. That's it.
Thank you. This does not have an addressee on it, so I will open it up to all of you. Do you support a school choice voucher program that includes tax dollars going to private or religious schools? And if so, how would you ensure that those schools meet the same academic admission disability requirements as the public school system?
My wife and I made the decision when our older daughter entered kindergarten age that we were going to send them to parochial school from K through middle school. That was a choice that we made. We paid for the cost involved with it. It was a good decision for our family. I would not support a voucher system because our public dollars are being used to make sure there's an equitable educational opportunity for all of their children in our state.
So because there are not currently standards that would hold accountable private institutions to the same standards that our public schools have to follow, and they can discriminate against children, they can say, no, we're not going to take you for any reason, I would not support a public or a private school voucher program. It undermines the freedoms our country were founded on. That free and public education is what levels the playing field for children that do not have the same access to education because of circumstances out of their control.
As a teacher who taught in public schools and taught many places and upheld the law and dealt with standards, I cannot imagine sending public dollars to schools that don't have to have those same standards.
Schools, public or private, need to be accredited. Obviously, I would not support sending dollars to a school that's not accredited, but do I support vouchers or educational savings accounts or all the other euphemisms they've been known by over the years? As a general concept, I do support this. Educators across the board are against this, and I always ask one question: what's best for the kids? Is it best, do you honestly believe that it's best for every single child to go to public school? I say it's not, and I say there are certainly kids who thrive better in private situations, and for that, among other reasons, I would support vouchers, educational savings account, call it what you will.
My husband and I sent our kids to St. Mary's and Sacred Heart here in Salina all the way through. And that was a choice we made. And we knew the tuition was expensive. And we decided to pay that tuition. That's a choice we made. We could have gone public school, we could have done it differently, but we chose not to. I don't believe that we should be giving vouchers to private schools such as Sacred Heart and St. Mary's when the public schools have to rely on what they have to rely on and have special accredited mandates that the other schools don't.
Sounds like everybody's getting warmed up now. It took an hour, we're getting warmed up now. With that in mind, what is your commitment to address gun violence? Sure, we'll open it up to the county level as well. I don't know how that will affect you, but sing if you would like.
If I knew a song about a gun, I might sing that. You know, I'm gonna say that again, it isn't something the Saline County Commissioners will be faced with. We certainly hear from the Sheriff's Office, we certainly hear from the Salina PD. We know that gun violence is rampant across the nation. I'm mortified when I see all of these school shootings and more things are going on. And I'm mortified with some of the ways law enforcement are addressing them and how everybody's kind of figuring out their own way of how to make this work. I don't have the exact solution, but I'm hoping that our legislators at the federal and at the state level can come up with a great solution to put a stop to some of these things that are going on in the school systems.
Cliches become cliches for a reason. Generally, they're true. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. And until we get away from this obsession with trying to regulate guns, which does not address the real problem, gun violence is a problem, but it is a mental health problem. That's what I would be in favor of. Not more ridiculous gun legislation that isn't going to save one life. Do you think criminals care about gun laws?
I believe at the county level, we can start addressing social issues that affect the people who handle the guns, the gangs, and the Sheriff's Office does some of that. Old programs that they found didn't work, the DARE program, and other things. Scared Straight, yeah, all sorts of things like that. But there are social programs that I know our sheriff's office and other groups are working on. And that's what we have to do, because it's not the guns. I agree with both of them. It's not the guns, it's the people.
So this may be news to some of you, but I am a gun owner. My husband has his federal firearms license, and we are believers in education. We are believers that gun owners need to take responsibility for the safety of those who have access to those guns. And so the laws that are in the books currently, the background checks need to be run. We've got to provide the staff to be able to do that. So currently we have good laws. We need to enforce those laws when things happen. And gun owners have to take responsibility for their actions, just like what happened with the school shooting recently. And the father's gonna face the consequences for his decision with his 14-year-old son.
The Second Amendment is here to stay. Our founders established this as one of the Bill of Rights in order to make sure and convince our electorate that this Constitution was something worth buying into. But I also believe that the founders believed in common sense, that laws would evolve, technology would evolve. I think our founders would say it would make common sense to have someone have training on how to use a gun before they use it. It would make common sense to be able to say, lock up your guns away from children. It would be okay for the founders to say, do not allow individuals who may cause harm to themselves or to others to have access to a gun. And I don't know that the founders would find common sense in the necessity of a gun that would fire hundreds of rounds a minute, but that's not a call. The amendment is here to say, but there is an evolution of common sense involved in our process. We continue to learn.
Again, this question is not addressed to a specific candidate, so I will open it to everybody up there. And for Ms. Grievous, you said you were here last time. I believe this question came up last time. What is your stance on abortion?
I believe in the freedom of all human beings to manage their own health care and their own reproductive rights without government interference.
Heard me say it already, the exact same thing. I'll say ditto to you, Mr. Buskirk. The government has no place in those decisions. In my home, for my daughter, who's 22 years old, for your children, for your grandchildren, I trust our humans, our able-bodied brains, to make those decisions that are best for themselves. And I don't believe the government has any place in making that decision.
I'll try to say it the same way that I said it last time. I am pro-choice because as a teacher, I saw too many children who were abused, both physically by being beaten and sexually. I had 2 students over the years who were impregnated by their fathers. I don't believe any woman, any girl should have to go through some of the things that I saw as a teacher. I agree with both of them. I don't believe in abortion as a method of birth control, but I certainly believe it's a woman's choice.
I am unapologetically pro-life. I am the president of Salinans for Life. Every chance that I have gotten so far in the Kansas legislature, I've voted on the pro-life side of every bill that has come up. I will continue to do that. What is the purpose of government? Is not one of the main purposes of government to protect the innocent, to protect the most vulnerable? Who is more vulnerable than an unborn child? The government has a perfect right to protect vulnerable children, whether they are born or unborn. Yes, women do have a right to do with their body as they choose. But when they are pregnant, there is a second body in there. I don't know of any women in here who have 4 eyes and 2 hearts. There is a second human being who is entitled to protection by the government.
Thank you.
pro-choice, and I'm pro-choice for various reasons. I didn't have daughters, I wish I did, but for the health and the matter that it is a health matter for women. But I'm going to play off a little bit of what Mr. Sanders said, is that the most vulnerable children is that unborn baby. Well, I'm telling you that our foster care system is broken. Our family services used to be SRS, now it's family, and I don't know, DCF, I can't even think of it. They are broken. They have so many youth and families in their system that they can't even serve and are not serving. When I would walk through the lobby at Community Corrections and a mother would bring in 5 children, some of them not dressed, some of them hadn't been fed for days, and we had to go out and find food and clothing and help them. The system's broken, so if government wants to protect, let's protect those kids that are born. Let's protect the kids that deserve to be kept, and let's make a difference in that group right there.
Thank you, Ms. Grievous, thank you. This is for the candidates for the 69th District. This question is for both of you. It says, will you promise to not resort to personal attacks and instead stick to differences in policy during this campaign?
Absolutely. I don't think that's happened tonight. If Lori has attacked me on any sort of social media or anything, I'm not aware of it. 2 years ago, when Sarah Cruz was the Democratic nominee, we had a very cordial campaign. As best I know, this campaign has been cordial. We clearly disagree about a lot of stuff, and that's okay. That's okay. But she's a fine human being, did great work at CAPS. So I can pledge that I will not attack her on a personal level, but I do disagree with a lot of her policy positions.
I pledge to not attack Representative Sanders. He came to CAPS and he sat down and he listened and he learned about the work that we had to do. While I was in that work, we worked with 5 different state government agencies, and so we had to work together, and that's why I feel like I'm qualified. I have a perspective about state government that is very unique as a business owner, as a local leader who has served as an elected official, and as a former leader who's done fundraising to provide services locally in our community. I will continue to advocate for this place, and if I am not elected, I will continue to be in Mr. Sanders' ear. So I want to keep that door open. I don't want to shut that door. We have to work together. It's why we're here on earth, is to connect with each other and to learn from each other. And I say the group mind is the best mind. I have one limited perspective about things because of my personal upbringing. I had no control over most of those things. When we can sit and talk and listen to each other and find something in the middle, we can find solutions that are better than either one of us can come up with alone.
Thank you. Let me build on that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your applause there. Let me build on that because this question is directed directly to you. It says, Miss Lori, will you make yourself available at any time of day, like Clark Sanders has done, to speak with groups and individuals experiencing crisis?
Absolutely. At the door, if you take one of my walk cards, it's got my cell phone number on it, it's got my email address on it. I put that on there because I want to hear from you. There's a QR code that you can send me ideas and your concerns. I want to be your representative. I'm not running because of any personal gain. I see issues that need to be resolved, and I love this place, and I want to keep it a place we can all be proud of. So absolutely, I'll make myself available to you. And Clark has done that. He's been on the floor. I've texted him in the middle of a debate and said, what are you thinking? And he has responded to me. So I will pledge to do the same thing.
Thank you. I guess this speaks to how well the 2 candidates for county office are going. This question says, any chance one of you can move to another district so both of you can serve?
I think that I'm safe in saying neither one of us is prepared to move.
I've actually heard that what a joy to have two women running in a situation where it's been flooded with men for many, many years. And I'm not slamming the men, but I'm just saying, let's bring some women on and get a different perspective.
And quiet is so unusual for me as well. Those same 40 years working with high school and with university students, this issue pops up in training all the time, and it's one of those of just being unconscionable. Like, well, we have to do training in case something like this erupts, but no one wants to ever think about something as egregious as that. So how would I react? I would hope that I would act. I hope that all of us would act. That's the one thing that we hear in emergency situations. The people that do nothing are the ones that give credence to those who are acting. So it's an unfair question, but it's an unfair answer. So we protect our little ones. We protect the ones that cannot protect themselves in any way possible.
So as a school board member, one of our obligations is to have a crisis response to situations like this. So I've been at the table helping develop those plans. At Child Advocacy and Parenting Services, the victim advocates that are there are trained to respond to witnesses to violent crime. So I would lean into those relationships, and I would remind our community of the resources that are available to them already. We have those systems and those supports in place, and that's what I've been doing for 25 years, and I would continue to be a connector to the supports that people need to recover from those awful situations.
As a county commissioner, it would be our job to ensure that the sheriff's office is prepared and ready for what they would need to do to respond. Having worked in emergency management, I helped with all sorts of emergency training with different agencies throughout Saline County, working together to plan for events such as that. As a teacher, as the coordinator of gifted education for Lawton Public Schools, there was a shooting about 5 feet outside my office door, and it was gang related, and the shooter ran in the building. I had 4 classrooms of gifted kiddos that we locked down, and I know you have to prepare for things like that. So yes, the county needs to prepare, the commissioners need to be sure that it's being done both by emergency management and by the sheriff's office and everyone else. The health department needs to be prepared. They work with all of the public agencies, the hospital, the doctor's offices, they all work together. But it goes back to sheriff.
Thank you.
Boy, if I had the solution to stop school shootings, Laura, you could hang it up right now, because I'd be representative for life. It's a really, really tough issue, folks. There is no one solution, but one thing that haunts me almost is there was, and you'll remember it, there was a school shooting in Florida. I think it's been about 3 or 4 years ago now. The young man who committed the shooting had 38 interactions with law enforcement in the year leading up to the shooting. Why couldn't something have been done to get him the help he needed or to stop him? There's a myriad of things that have to be done. But when you know there's a threat, deal with it before it becomes an incident.
I think as a Saline County Commissioner, we would need to work with our city and have, and able to address law enforcement, sheriff's office, PD, and all of them, and encourage all of us to collaborate and be a part of the issue. I think that there are so many services out there in our community. One of the things we use so often in grants is that we're service rich in Salina. And I think activating those and making sure that we're aligned with the city in that, and that we work together to assist those schools and make sure the services are provided. If they're not provided, let's work together to figure out how to make sure that's provided. This has been going on even when my kids were in school. Unfortunately, it's just grown to a level that is beyond rational. It's hard to even believe where we are. But I think that if we work together and collaborate together, we can enact and help out the situation.
Thank you. This question says, I've noticed that more than the Republicans, Democrats vote as a bloc, mostly because of pressure from their party bosses. For all of the partisan candidates, how can this bloc voting be overcome and votes be made for the good of the people as opposed to an R or a T next to your name? You want to take that one, Annie?
Well, I'm not real sure I understand the question completely. Do you want to, but I would say this, one, county commissioners should not be partisan. They should not be Democrat or Republican or anything. They don't make a single decision that is based on partisan. And that's me talking to commissioners for 35 years. And just talking to 2 of them today in a meeting. So some of these archaic legislative decisions that were made well before you were there, Clark. They need to be revamped. They need to go back and look at those things because you don't need it. The city's not partisan. They're not voted by partisan. They don't make those partisan decisions. I don't think there's a reason to. We should be able to vote for who we want to vote for, who speaks to us the most, who addresses the constituents in the areas they are.
Topeka is an extremely partisan place. Now, the fact of the matter is about 85% of the bills that come up are things that we call rats and cats bills. You know, they're about, should the license plate be on the front of the cement truck or should it be on the back? Those kind of things get passed with overwhelming majorities. But of anything of significance, and you've brought up most of the significant issues tonight, the Republicans generally vote together, although we have 2 or 3 or 4 that flake off from us sometimes, and the Democrats almost always vote together. The first 2 years that I was up there, the Democrats always voted together. The last 2 years, there was a Democrat named Marvin Robinson. Marvin unfortunately passed away. He lost in his primary. He wasn't going to be reelected. He was the only Democrat who ever went against the party line.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
Partisan politics do not take place in Saline County, to my knowledge, at this point. When I began working for the health department, there was a hint of some partisan politics. I'm seeing some nods up here. And that's one of the reasons that I'm running, and I think Annie feels the same way. We've seen it. It doesn't belong, and we don't want it to be here anymore.
I got to live in the benefit of being nonpartisan as a school board member. I've mentioned that several times this evening. I'm all about relationships, and I am all about working together to solve problems. I sleep with a Republican every night. It's true, I do. So I believe that we can listen to each other and we can focus in on an issue. When we develop those kinds of relationships and we can find common ground to start from, I think anything is possible. And the hope lies in that. But we have to have people that are committed to that, and we have to elect people that are committed to that. You heard our representative say earlier that he did not sway across party lines one time last session. I will not be that person.
After an opportunity to visit with some voters about 2 months ago, I had a reporter come up to me, we had a very decent, good discussion. He said, Paul, I appreciate what you're saying, but you understand that once you're elected, your party will tell you what to do. They will tell you how to make fundraising calls, they'll tell you how to vote. And I said, think about this. If a Democrat wins in the 1st District of Kansas for the first time in 70 years, I have a bully pulpit that is immense. I will vote to represent my community and my district. Heck with the party.
Can I correct one thing?
One response right there.
Okay.
And Ms. Blake, I'll give you an opportunity to respond if necessary.
I did not say that I don't ever vote with the Democrats. I said on the veto overrides, I was 100%. But yes, I have voted in favor of issues that frankly I thought the Democrats were right on. And it's not fun being in the minority, but if it was an issue that I thought the Democrats were correct on, I voted with the Democrats. I've done that all 4 sessions I've been up there.
Ms. Blake, any response? Okay, thank you. At this point, for sake of time, we are going to move to closing statements, and we're going to start down on this end if you want to pass the microphone that way. I believe we started on the left last time. I'm sorry. And we're going to give 2 minutes for your closing statement. And just for sake of time, thank you all for being here. And I believe after each one of their closing statements, they will be worthy of applause afterwards. So let's start with, well, if you agree with them, I guess. Let's start with Ms. Breathes.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Again, I was here at the primary forum and participated. What a great turnout at that one, but also a bigger turnout at this one. And I love to see the people that are interested in what your options are and who you can vote for. And I am not a straight ticket voter, and I hope that everybody considers that and looks at the best candidate. I think my experience speaks for itself. I've spoke about it plenty of times, and so that's what I think makes me the candidate of choice. But I ask you all to mostly get out and vote, either early or on November 5th. Thank you.
I would like to thank the Granny Brigade for hosting this forum here tonight. I'd also like to thank Lori Blake for being here and for our respectful and spirited discussion on issues that are important to all of Kansans. But most of all, I'd like to thank you, every one of you, who took the time to come out and become an informed voter. It's very important to vote, but I think it's equally important to become an informed voter. And you took the time to be here to do that, and I appreciate it. The choice in this election is clear. I think you realize that after listening to us for the last hour and a half. If you think Governor Kelly is doing a wonderful job and leading the state in the right direction, Lori's your candidate. However, if you believe like I do that the governor and her liberal policies are not taking Kansas in the direction it needs to go, then I'm your guy. If I earn the honor of being elected for another 2 years, I will do what I have always done, namely fight the governor when she, as she often does, pushes legislation that is not good for the citizens and the taxpayers of Kansas. I'm Clark Sanders. I would appreciate your vote early. That's the big thing we're supposed to do these days. Vote early or vote on Election Day, November 5th. I would love to go back to Topeka.
I too would like to thank everyone for showing up tonight and being interested, knowing that there was a 16.7% number of voters who showed up in Saline County to vote for the primary. That's so tiny. So it was more than this, but not too many more. That's really sad. But it's great that there are people who are interested. I believe that I'm the most qualified candidate because I do have the experience with working across so many departments, with departments working with each other for so many different things. I did make a choice to move here 15 years ago, and this is where I'm staying. I have long-term plans. Some of you know them. I am a write-in candidate. The Secretary of State says my name does not have to be spelled correctly as long as the intent is clear. So please vote for me on November 5th.
So yes, we have very different opinions, Clark and I, but I do believe that many of you in this room probably have different opinions than I do as well. They're not two rubber stamp, identical humans in the world. And when we can, like I said earlier, when we can listen to each other and find something that's important to us and build on that, the relationships that come out of it can only benefit this community. Saline is an amazing place. Okay, the work that is done in the nonprofit sector is not done in isolation. It cannot be done without individual gifts. It cannot be done with without the support of local government. We had grants from not only the city, the county, the state, federal government. I have that experience in working across those bodies and collaborating together to lift the story and lift the message. So that is why I'm running, is to lift Saline County and carry that message back to Topeka so they know what an incredible place this is, because I don't think that's happening now. I hope you'll vote for me on November 5th, if not between October 21st and then. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you to the Granny Brigade for including me today. I appreciate that, and I'm honored to be here. Every election is about a choice, and this election may be more impactful than some we have seen in some time. History will tell us whether that's true or not, and being an informed voter is absolutely critical. So 2 things I ask of everyone in this room tonight. 2 things. Number 1 is, you know a voter who is between the ages of 18 and 30, plus or minus. Where do they get the majority of their information? Usually it's social media. You understand how social media works. If I read a story about snakes on social media knows that, and the next story that's going to pop up behind that is going to be about snakes or spiders or something icky like that, right? So our young people, because this is what they are engaged with, are using social media and may be primed or influenced in a direction they may not even understand. So number 1 is reach out to that young person, encourage them to look to a different source to be able to balance their decisions so that they can make an honest and informed choice. And number 2, for everyone in this room that's maybe just a little bit older than that 18 to 30, myself included, if you are accustomed to getting your information by one particular media effort, I'd ask you to go look at a second one. If you're a CNN person, go look at Fox. If you're a Fox person, go look at CNN. Look at something different that we're accustomed to ensure that our understanding, that our beliefs, that our opinions are balanced and that we're true to ourselves. We're looking in the mirror in this particular election. And it will be an amazing election because it will be ours and it will be honest. Thank you for including me tonight.
We thank you for coming this evening. It was a very interesting evening. I'm sorry if we didn't get to everybody's cards, but it is a school night, and I'm sure there are some parents here that have to go home to school children. So we want to thank all of you for coming, and thank me, Dean, for live streaming this and social media. And tell your friends to get on social media and listen to the forum tonight. And again, thank you very much for coming. Check out next month because Roger Marshall will be here.